What is going on, you guys? In today's video, I wanted to talk about the Giants' offensive line from the 2022 season at a pretty high level, not going too detailed into things. So let's get started with the great of last year. At left tackle, we had Andrew Thomas, who had his first really true breakout season. It was amazing to see. The guy had a phenomenal year. The stats speak for themselves. I think he maybe gave up like one or two sacks in the entire season, which was great considering he played pretty much every single down of every single offensive snap that we had, which was great to see. Similar to the guy on the right side of the line, in Evan Neal, newly drafted out of Alabama, who did have a pretty shaky start. He did show those flashes, but I think the thing to think about with Evan Neal is, Andrew Thomas didn't look that great his first or second year in the league, right? We were getting a little concerned with him. But I think at the end of the day, it was patience was key for that development. And now you've seen him elevate his game to such a high level. And, it just does take time. Like, I think gone are the days that you're going to get a college offensive tackle who comes in day one and dominates the league for a decade, right? It does take time to build up. There are some random guys who do that, like, Quentin Nelson or something, or Zach Martin. But, all these other positions do take time, especially, that jump from college, whether you are playing in the SEC versus the cream of the crop every week, it's a whole other ratchet up level when you get to the NFL. So I think in Evan Neal's defense, even though he did have a pretty rough season and go at it for his rookie campaign, we have to give him the benefit of the doubt and hope that he will get better season over season. And also to his defense, he did have that knee injury pretty early on in the year that kept him out a couple of games. Maybe he just wasn't at 100%. Regardless, I want a full NFL offseason. I mean, obviously, Alabama off seasons are probably pretty intense, but I imagine having the really cohesiveness of the Giants, offensive line altogether for a single offseason, building upon that will only let Evan Neal get better. Having said that, the true pain points and issues for the Giants offensive line in 2022 was really along those from the guard to guard position, so guard, center, guard. Looking at what ESPN had, we'll just get started at left guard, was our boy Nick Gates, just a true fan favorite of the Giants. Honestly, I was absolutely shocked that he came back after his terrible knee injury suffered a year ago. When a guy that big snaps his leg almost like Joe Theismann-esque, it's really hard to come back from that. And we don't see too many guys do that. So kudos to Nick Gates, man. Absolutely amazing that you were able to make it back this year and be pretty productive in a lot of games. I know we always see him on, if you're following all the Giants Instagram accounts, you'll see him warming up, getting jacked up before the games. And, he's kind of such a locker room guy and presence, and that's why he was voted captain. So I'm glad to see him make his comeback. And then the two other ones on the offensive line, which caused some issues, were John Feliciano, who was bounced around from center and guard, kind of similar with Gates. But Feliciano, I think he brings a level of toughness and intensity that we saw a lot of with Will Hernandez. And I think, those are great in some aspects, but then in other scenarios, when you're flexing at a guy, after a 17-yard rush at the end of the game and they throw a flag on you, honestly, that's kind of on you, not really the refs. So I know I do, in offensive line, you do need that intensity, you do need that grit, and you do need those characters. So hard to really be too pissed off at the guy, but I would like to see the Giants have an improvement at that position if they could get someone in the free agency market, maybe a little bit cheaper, but with something to prove going into their second contract. And then also at right guard, we had Mark Lewinsky. I really don't have too much positive things to say about this guy. He didn't really do all too much for the Giants. I feel like every single game I was watching, he's either like turned around, like looking at Saquon while Saquon's running through the hole right at him, like just fucking block someone, dude, or like, just get to a linebacker downfield or something. But that is a major position that we need to upgrade. And I think obviously this whole offensive line in general is they were covered, right? And they were covered for two reasons, right? For not being as bad as or not as good at strongly producing as they are, right? Because when you have a mobile, elusive quarterback where the NFL has moved towards in Daniel Jones, he was able to really make plays with his legs and get out of sacks. Like I think you saw really where it came to a head was the final playoff game versus the Eagles, where Danny Dimes is getting his ass kicked and put on his back every other third or fourth down, right? So um, I think, and the other side of things was Saquon Barkley having a running back like Saquon. Really, when defenders are meeting you a yard or two in the backfield, and they're missing their opportunity to make a big play or a TFL, tackle for a loss. Saquon's making those guys miss really quickly and getting upfield for 3 or 4 yards, right? When probably 95% of the other running backs in the league are getting stopped in their tracks, right? At the yard, 1 yard short or something. So I think it's all kind of complementary, right? And it's part of being a team. But when you have Danny Dimes and Saquon being so elusive, especially from a backfield perspective, it really made the offensive line's job easier. I think one key stat that I do want to focus on during this video is that, as you can see here, per StatMuse, the Giants ranked fifth in the NFL in sacks allowed with 49. Obviously, there's room for improvement there. And then, the Giants have to improve, especially Evan Neal. I'm very confident in Andrew Thomas's ability. But when you look at the other teams in the division that you're going to see a lot of, well, the Eagles pretty much were like 2 or 3 sacks away. I think you saw it in the Super Bowl from the Bears, like 84, 85 single season sack records and stuff. Like, that is very, very impressive what the Eagles have done from that perspective in bringing in a number of defensive linemen that can get to the quarterback. So next up on the list, you have the Cowboys, who have a generational talent at defensive end in Micah Parsons. He's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. He was probably second in voting for Defensive Player of the Year, only in his second year, as Bosa Bro won it. And then the third thing, which is, I don't even actually know how this is going to shake out, so I don't even want to spend too much time on it because I saw a rumor recently. But you do have Chase Young, who will be coming back with a full, really coming back to 100% healthiness. And he was supposed to be good, as he was drafted, second overall by the Commanders a couple of years ago. So he'll be coming back. And so you have a lot of talent on the defensive front in a lot of these other teams within our division. So that number from a stats perspective around sacks has got to be improved. And I think a lot of it, will come down to making some adjustments up front, especially from the right guard and center position. Anyway, let me know what you guys want to see improved upon in the Giants offensive line. And also, bonus part of this video, because I didn't want to do a full video about this, is, and I can include it on the offensive line side of things, because tight ends are an extension of the offensive line. Also an extension of wide receivers as well. But this year it was pretty wonky season for tight ends on the Giants. Our boy, rookie tight end Daniel Bellinger did have a pretty breakout season, and the Giants used him very creatively in a lot of different ways. He was really good at blocking. He also found ways to get downfield and get open, and Mike Kafka got him involved in this offense in a number of different ways, whether it was like reverses for touchdowns, or I think even on one of those reverses, he kind of pulled it and looked like he was going to throw. So what a talent that the Giants might have found, and I'm really excited about his future. And I think it's only going to, he did hit that crazy midpoint that Bellinger had when he got the fractured eye socket, which was a pretty freak injury. That never really happens. You don't see that really at all in the NFL. So I'm hoping, and he was pretty quiet after that from a performance perspective, but I mean, it was kind of a freak injury. So I'm hoping he can, really rest and recharge. And there's not much to say besides, I wouldn't wish any sort of eye injury on my worst enemy because it sucks so bad. And then besides that, we had guys like Luke Cager, Nick Vannett, and Chris Myriak. Cager had one bad drop, I think, in a 2-point conversion, but besides that, he does show receiving glimpses. I would assume, and Nick Vannett too, I think he's a little bit older. I mean, he might be 30 years old vet, so they just probably brought him in as a sort of blocking piece there. Never really had any success so far in his NFL career, so I don't know why that would start right now when the Giants haven't been leveraging tight ends to that extent of being a playmaker. So outside of Bellinger, I think this group will probably need some work. Probably bring in some other guys, or maybe through the draft again, finding a diamond in the rough, like a Daniel Bellinger out of Arizona State. So it'll be interesting to see how Joe Schoen attacks this, or San Diego State, rather. It'll be interesting to see how, Joe Schoen attacks this one. But I'm optimistic about Daniel Bellinger having a full NFL season under his feet and only improving year over year. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the Giants' offensive line and by extension tight end as well, as we move into 2023, what we want to see improved upon, and whatever you guys think. Anyway, next one coming up will probably be on the defensive line, so stay tuned for